everybody, and welcome back to the Sideline Eye podcast. You're welcome to our review show, and we're looking back at Sunday's Ulster final, in which Armagh lost out after a penalty shootout to Derry. The game ended all square, 18 points to 115, but Derry got the batter in the penalty shootout, winning 3-1. I'm delighted to be joined by Aaron Kernan, and we're going to look back at all of Sunday's action. Aaron, a penalty shootout once again, the heartache for Armagh after a penalty shootout. It happened against Galway, obviously, last year in Croke Park. And it wasn't any easier on Sunday, losing again after penalties.
It's not. And to be fair, I suppose the people who you would feel most sorry for is obviously the management group and players. They're the ones who are making the sacrifices and investing their time and effort and energy into it. But like, we were drained after it, so you can only imagine how they were. It was a tough one to take. We went from being under pressure to thinking we had it won, to thinking that we just lost it, to giving us as a lifeline of penalties, which we would have took. But ultimately it was just another tough, sorry day at the office.
I don't know, I spoke to you briefly after the game yesterday, and we were saying that it was worse than the Galway one because there was an actual cup on the line this time. The Ulster trophy was on the line, so that just makes it worse than last year.
It did, yeah. It was more deflating for me yesterday, and it simply was. This was something that those boys have aimed at for a generation of playing, and I'm talking particularly about your older leaders like Aidan, Morgie, Groogs, Andrew, Soupy, that sort of age bracket. They've given 10 or 12 years. We spoke about this last week to it. And they come up short. Same with the management. Kieran been there for 9 years. It would have been something in terms of a reward as we're heading on into the All-Ireland series. Like, yeah, it doesn't change anything in the All-Ireland series, but definitely it was a massive goal that I know the group probably didn't publicly speak about, but you can be certain that privately within their group that this was something that they were hell-bent on doing. So they've got so close and they've come up short. It'd be hugely disappointed for them.
And just in the penalty shootout, obviously your heart would go out to the couple of boys that missed penalties. It's such a pressure situation and all on the line and everything that we've just sort of said this morning. And to miss them penalties, but to be fair, Owen Lynch pulled off a couple of good saves, the Derry goalkeeper. And when that happens, I think last year maybe did Soupy put the ball over the bar and Turbo put it wide or something as well? So when the keeper saves them, it's maybe a wee bit easier to accept.
Maybe not if you're the boys that missed them. But to be fair, I just would have nothing but admiration for any one of them who would put their hands up. I said to a few people yesterday as well, in terms of what happens in general playing a game. I'd have would have had plenty of self-belief in terms of being able to go and do it if there was pressure on. But penalties for me would be a different story. It's not something that I've ever practiced, and I think it just takes a certain type of character to walk up in front of 28,500 people and know that everyone's eyes is fixated on yourself. So for those boys to put their hands up and go forward and do that there, huge respect from. Unfortunately, it just didn't work out. But like, I'm certain the group and those players themselves have been practicing penalties and training, hitting penalties for their clubs whenever they come up. But just nothing at all you could do could replicate what they would have had to face yesterday with that atmosphere. After playing a full game, throwing your extra time, and then you have the build up to the game, the nerves, the nervous energy, the heat, everything that comes into play. And then, like I said, there's the pressure that you must score this. So it was massive. And like I said, it's so unfortunate for those boys that it didn't work out for them. But like you said, that's unfortunately just the lottery that there is. There's a lot of people complaining about penalties, and for me, it is what it is. I was always a strong advocate for the split season in terms of giving a set calendar for your club campaign, your county campaign. I know the seasons are squashed. I get all of that there, but for the club game to have a certainty and to flourish even more, which I fully believe it will in the years to come, that it'll just grow and grow and grow. you needed to put a bit of certainty to it, and for that to happen, replays in the game was something that had to stop. It is tough on the ones that miss the penalties, but likewise, you know, if Ryan had missed the free kick with the last kick of the game and all the pressure was put on him, was that not tough on him? Sure, of course it would have been, you know, but it's unfortunately it's just part and parcel of it. These things happen. Whenever they go over, you're the hero. Whenever they don't, it seems Kieran McFall, sure, he's the hero. You know, he's the main man in Derry today because it come off for him. But for me, penalties are part of our game. You foul a man in open play, someone has to step up and take the penalty. You know, you hark back to 0-2, Oshin missing the penalty. If he didn't get the goal from play in the second half, he'd always be remembered as a man that missed the penalty. Does that mean that there shouldn't be penalties in the game? No, it's part and parcel of it. So, to me, I couldn't complain about it now. I understand why we have to take penalties. I understand that, yes, there's huge pressure and it's very tough on those that miss them. But there's a lot of things that happens in games. Ethan, if you asked him 9 times out of 10, would he come for that ball again? He'll say no, he wouldn't. But like I said, these things happen. You can't legislate for everything in a game of football, and I suppose that's what makes sport what it is. There's certain times it's so unpredictable.
We'll definitely get on to that goal and all the ins and outs of the game, Aaron. But just, I know, speaking to you off there earlier, we were both at the game, and we're talking about the colour clash, the clash of the jerseys, the orange against the red. I didn't find it too bad at the game, but having watched the Sunday game last night for those watching on telly, and we know there was plenty of people couldn't get tickets, it was very hard to make out which team was which. And I know you struggled at the game too, just to tell the difference for a split second.
Yeah, it did. I couldn't believe it. I don't understand the rationale behind it. I have noticed that Derry, obviously the first 2 games they played last year in the championship against Tyrone and then Monaghan, their colour clashes, they always change their jerseys. But then Ulster final against Donegal last year, they continued to wear the predominantly red with white, and they've done it throughout this year in league games and everything. But to me, yeah, that's something that I feel the Ulster Council should have dealt with pretty early. Like there was absolutely no need for them to be wearing a predominantly red jersey with white trim. Whenever their traditional jersey is the predominantly white version of it. So yeah, it was an unnecessary sort of issue that was created. And I think whenever you throw in the good weather and the backdrop, all you could see was either orange or red mixing in with each other. It did, and to me, like, it wasn't a major thing, but there's just small split seconds. Like myself and the chef was playing a league game the other night in Ballymcnab, and you're nicely perched on the hill there, but the sun was setting and you couldn't make out any colour in any jersey whenever you were trying to carry your ball or kick a ball up the field. So it just puts a split second of doubt into your mind. So I don't know, I haven't spoken to any of the players whether it bothered them in the field. Obviously they're the ones who matter most, but just from us sitting on the outside, there were a few times where I was a bit unclear or thought the ball should have been laid off, and thankfully it wasn't, because it was actually Derryman that was going past one of our fellas.
Yeah, it was strange. I don't know how it was let happen or why it was let happen, but I suppose getting into the action hour in extra time, I think Armagh led for the first time in extra time. It was the first time they got actually in front, and they went 2 points up, and it really felt, I think there was maybe 3 minutes left at the end of the game, and it really felt that was it, that they were going to win the game, and it just slipped from their hands. And I suppose you have to give massive credit to Derry, and in particular, I think Conor Glass and Shane McGuigan really were the two that stood up and sort of dragged them back into it. So Armagh went from 2 up to 1 down to getting back to on level terms and getting the penalty shootout. So the last couple of minutes was just a frenzy, wasn't it?
It was, and to be fair, the first half of extra time went the way I thought it would, that there'd be no football played, because Derry were going to try and run the clock down to get Brendan Rodgers back onto the field. They were very, very cute in what they did, and I don't think we can complain, because I can guarantee you we would have done the exact same thing had the shoe been on the other foot. So there's not really much we could say about that. But in terms of ourselves, yeah, in extra time, definitely Soupy coming through, Ethan coming through. You just felt that we'd done enough. And to be fair, I don't think there's much that we can say. I think you just have to simply hold your hands up and say what you mentioned in terms of Conor Glass and Shane McGuigan. It just seemed like those 2 boys said, we're going to do whatever we have to do to make sure we get ourselves across the line. And whenever we got the second point to go one up, the fact that they went up the field straight away and scored and only put one in it. And we were very good at getting the ball away all day. We were going basically with the bunch and break, where we were going, getting outside our 45, going in a straight line up the field and just giving Ethan options on either wing to chip the ball out. We were very successful all day. But once they got the score to put one in it, literally every single Derry player clamped an Armagh man, just grabbed hold of him. Now, technically, and David Goff did give a free, I think once, maybe twice in the game for this, where someone was holding in the middle of the field and he just brought the kicker to the middle of the field and give us a free. But Derry clamped every one of our boys and stopped them from running. So that was the first one, and Ethan had to go long. They won it, they equalised, and they done the exact same thing again. And at that stage, their crowd was getting up. And you can say what you want, and we can all talk about it now in hindsight. And we sat and we've looked at footage, and we've seen other people made wee breaks here. Should forget about all that. Like, put yourself in somebody's shoes yesterday with 28,500 people, and it's going mad, and you're looking at an Ulster final that you thought you just won, starting to slip away again. You have to. The pressure that's on players at that stage to try and get a bit of clarity and thought, in terms of where do I play this ball, where do I move, do I double up and someone here to create an option to be a break ball or whatever. Like, everything goes out the window. So to be fair to Derry, they showed huge courage, resilience, focus, and maybe clamping our boys down. Maybe technically we could have had a free for some of them, but it didn't happen, and I think it just added to the drama. But I think we answered them just as well in terms of Lachlan Murray fist the point, and you're like, I just cannot believe we're after losing an Ulster title when you said literally 3 minutes ago we thought we had the job done here. But we went up the field, and to be fair to Soupy, I don't think there's anyone else in the ground from an Armagh perspective would have done what he did. He had only one thing in mind. He was getting the ball, he was taking on whoever he could take on, and he was getting as far inside that 45 as he could. Was it a soft enough free? Probably was. If he was coming out, I was a defender coming out with the ball, they probably wouldn't have got a free. It would have been blown up and a free in. But I think to have the courage and convictions to do what he did, we were just happy to see him getting the free. And there's no doubt Ryan was putting the ball over until actually I seen him hitting it out of his hands. And just the way McGuigan had dropped one short, Rory's had dropped short, I just put a wee bit of doubt in my mind, and I was like, oh Jesus, set it in the ground and put it over. But no, man for the big occasion, he delivered again.
Yeah, he always does. I was the same. We were asking each other, why is he taking it out of his hands? I suppose just after the Galway game last year, you were looking to repeat that, but he slotted it over, and that obviously led to penalties. But you'd mentioned Soupy Aaron coming into the game. When he was dropped from the starting team before the throw-in, he obviously knew he was going to come in and be an impact sub, and what an impact he made. I think he scored 2 points. He won that last free. And just off the bench, he just makes he's such a good player that it's very hard not to start him, I would think. But the impact he has when coming on, it's incredible every time he does it, isn't it?
Yeah, he comes on with a point to prove. Like I say, it's his direct running, and like I know from Soupy, whenever he first joined the county panel, like it was clear to me the quality he has. I've said this, I think, in your show previously, that he reminds me so much of Diarmuid Connolly in terms of just his balance, his pace, and his power. But he always has his head up, So as you're defending him, like some players, you'll show them one way, where they want to go. Where Soupy that time, like he was taking his man on as if he was drifting on his left foot. He can solo and shoot off his left foot, so you're not going to comfortably stand off him. He then come in on his right, which is obviously a stronger and more preferred side. So it's the balance that he has, his head up, but it's the pace and the power he goes with. Like, he's not afraid to take on 2 or 3 men, where just so many times now you see someone who's maybe unwilling to take contact off one person because of a fear, maybe if they don't get past this, a second man's going to come in. He doesn't play with that fear. He just plays with a confidence in his own convictions. He's going to buy in, probably quite similar to Ethan Doherty on the Derry side. Unbelievable balance as well, and I suppose commitment to taking a man on. And that's what makes them so hard to handle. And like I said, definitely there's no one else you would have wanted at that stage of the game on the ball in terms of driving towards the Derry goal. And he did the right thing. He drew enough contact to make sure that we get a simple score.
So just on the forward line, Aaron, did Armagh get enough out of their forward line? Because I know Rian got 5 or 6, couple of frees, couple from play. Rory got 2 frees. But Conor Turbot was held scoreless. Andrew Mernon was held scoreless, taken off as well. Jason Duffy scoreless as well, taken off. Armagh actually had more defenders on their goalkeeper, got scores from play than they did their forwards. So it was probably a disappointing day. And this is an Armagh team that put up 18 points, so they didn't do too badly, but maybe just didn't get enough out of their big forwards.
To be honest, no, they didn't. In terms of, like, you're talking about the quality of Jason, Andrew, and Connor, it's probably unheard of to see them been held scoreless like that. There, we're fully aware of the quality that they possess. Some of it, to be fair, you have to put down to the caliber of player that they're up against and say fair play to them. Chrissy McCaig, if we keep Connor Turbot scoreless, like, I think we all know the quality Chrissy McCaig has as a defender. Does he do some stuff that technically should be frees? Yeah, he does, but he seems to get away with it. It wasn't just yesterday. In terms of Jason, Andrew, Jason, I think maybe we only remember one. He had a chance in the first half, maybe slightly out of the scoring zone. But to be fair, I don't have a problem with someone if they're taking it home with it and they're confident enough that they think they can execute. Let them at it. That's why they're forwards, and that's what makes them the players who they are. So yeah, in terms of, like, you couldn't their work rate, their endeavour in terms of tracking people all over the field. Like, if you put into context as well, then the Derry defenders, an awful lot of Derry defenders who didn't have the same impact that they would in terms of an attacking game. An Armagh forward line collective stops that as well, So there were definitely aspects of their game that they did well at. But their bread and butter is putting scores on the board, and those 3 boys in particular, you would probably always bank that they would get a score. So they'll be disappointed in that there themselves. In terms of the defenders and Ethan coming up to get more scores, that's probably a lot to do with how the game is played by Derry. That you're just simply left with defenders who are coming late into attacks, and they're the ones who get the opportunities. Or the air forwards, are winning the ball and popping it back out to someone who's having a go. Conor O'Neill came in off the Jerry out. There's one time kicked a brilliant score in a 1-on-1 situation. Kieran Mackin going straight through the centre. So opportunities pop up more, or you have maybe that bit more space, or you're coming with a bit more pace and power if you're running from deep than where Derry like to clog up around the D area in particular, and a forward has only a split second to get a snapshot off. So Derry tactics, Derry's man marking ability would have played into that. But yeah, ultimately those boys pride themselves in putting the ball over the bar. And it was unfortunate. I think if we had got maybe 3-4 points out of those 3 boys in particular, it would have made a huge difference on the day. But like I said, it just wasn't to be for one reason or another.
And obviously the goal was a huge thing as well, Aaron. And you said Ethan 9 times out of 10 won't come for that ball, but he came for it. Well, he half came for it, decided it was too far away, tried to backtrack, and Rogers done really well. He got a really strong fist on it. And Aaron McKay, it's a game of inches, and Aaron McKay was literally just, I'm sure, touched his fingertips trying to keep it out of the goal. But that goal, it just kept Derry, they just kept them a point or two ahead the whole way through the game. Armagh just couldn't get level until the final couple of minutes, and it just gave that Derry that wee bit of breathing space the whole way through the game, didn't it?
It did, and I tell you, it gave them a wee bit of confidence as far as I'm concerned, because I thought we had started quite well. We looked fairly calm and composed for a team that was playing in the first final. Certainly didn't look overawed. So it was a huge break of fortune for them. In terms of Ethan, sure, we haven't seen that happening at any stage over this past 2 years. So to me, it's not a problem. It's not an issue at all. He's so commanding whenever anything hay comes in around the square. To me, it just was. I think again, if you go back to the Shane McGuigan dropped effort in from a free in the first half, Rory's effort at the end of normal time, he just thought the ball was going to travel further than what it did, and it just held up that bit more. Where he clearly thought it was going to be heading a lot closer to the goals, and it hung up around the 14-yard line. You could nearly see his brain starting to work overtime as he was running for it, going, "Jesus, no, backtrack, backtrack!" But he got caught on the back foot. Aaron McKay couldn't get across, but like I would say, Jesus, 99 times out of 100, that ball's not going into the net. You know, there was a huge amount of good fortune for it to make its way into the bottom corner. It certainly wasn't something that Derry devised themselves, or it wasn't that they cut us wide open for that goal scoring chance. It was one of those things. But again, it's how we reacted to it. Never dropped our heads. Got back into a groove and straight up the field, got a score. So that's hugely positive that it didn't affect us at all, to be honest with you. It didn't seem to affect us at all. There seemed to be like a calmness all across the squad, which was actually quite impressive. Heads could have dropped. You could have thought, Jesus, this isn't going to be our day. But to me, it didn't seem like it had any effect at all. It just made, like you said, it a grind then. We were constantly trying to claw them back. As soon as we'd get to one, they'd go back out to two again. But it didn't. As soon as it went in, it could have been very deflating. I nearly was getting deflated myself, but within a minute or two, they said we were right back in the game, and it was all to play for. So to me, it didn't have a massive bearing. Mistakes happened. It was 90 minutes of football, which was always going to be mistakes. It wasn't a winning or losing of it as far as I was concerned.
And just on that Rory free at the end, Aaron, I know I was speaking to you off air about it. And you felt it was just a wee bit outside his range, and you'd mentioned a couple of times about that sort of swirling wind up at that top end. I think it was in normal time. It was the last minute of normal time. Ethan done really well to pick him out for the mark, and it just fell short, and it was just agonisingly close at that stage, wasn't it?
It was, and to be fair, again, like the closing minutes of an Ulster final, it looked like it was something Armagh had clearly planned on, in terms of if we get ourselves in this situation to get a match win and score. I would say if the play had been starting along the Jerry Arthurs, I nearly guarantee you that Ryan was the one who was going to end up taking an attacking mark inside the 45 the Pat McGrain side. So for me, if it was Ryan, Rory was the other person who we wanted in that position to win the attacking mark, to win the game for ourselves. It probably was just on the edge of his range. I know myself as a free taker on that side, like it would just be squeezing my range. Ryan obviously is a different animal. He is a much stronger pinging him, or he can go off the outside of his boot as well from a further distance. He can go off the ground if it's an over free. But it just, to me, it just felt like those goals, as the ball was travelling inside the 45, it felt like the wind was coming straight across the face of the goal there, that the ball was just hanging up a slight bit. And Rory's, it looked like it was travelling well, and then literally as soon as it hit the 14-metre line as it was travelling in, you could just see it was a backspin and it was going to hold up. So very unfortunate. Like I said, I could be wrong, but it looked like it was something that this had been talked about, spoke about, plotted and planned, and this is who we need to get in this zone. So, like I say, yeah, just very, very unfortunate that it never come off from at that stage, because we'd be sitting as Ulster champions today, I've no doubt about that. But like I said, I don't like to look at one thing. I look at stuff in the context of the whole game. Everybody, there's stuff that we could all do differently. There's stuff we wish didn't happen, did happen, whatever. That I said, it's the beauty of sport. There's so many uncertainties.
And Aaron, it's the on to All Ireland series now, and we knew if whoever the loser was going to go into the group of death for the round robin. I'm not so sure. I'm happy enough to avoid Donegal and Monaghan, because pretty much I'm sick of talking about them and sick of writing about them. So into the group of death, it's Westmeath at home up first, then Tyrone away, then Galway neutral. The last round. This is a quick turnaround. I think it's in 2 weeks. So Armagh, the lick their wounds the day and maybe over the next couple of days. But its focus just has to switch straight away again, doesn't it?
Not right now. If I hope to God the Armagh players are sitting in a beer garden in Basel Shields enjoying the company of themselves, their girlfriends, the management, and blow off some steam. If they're not doing that, there's something wrong with them. I would have thought even tomorrow there'd be a lot of sore bodies, probably a lot of sore heads. It'd be little or nothing done, maybe a bit of recovery, and then maybe start to try and get the legs flushed out towards the end of this week, and really start to focus in on Westmeath from the weekend. And it's a game that I don't think we can afford to be complacent with at all, because this is the unknown for everyone, because we've never played in this All Ireland series before. It's probably a bit more of a protracted Super 8s, which we didn't compete in before. So that's a massive game for us, because we just need to get a win. Get the win that you need to win. That pretty much guarantees you, you have the opportunity to progress out of that group, either as one of your top two or the preliminary quarterfinal playoff. So it's a huge game for us. And like I said, I don't know what way we come out of yesterday injury wise. I would say I know there was a lot of people came and went. I would have thought a lot of it was just down fatigue. In terms of the other injuries that we have, who can we get back in time? I'm not really sure, but it's it's a massive game for the boys to get themselves up to. Like psychologically, it's completely understandable that yesterday's going to take so much out of them, because, like I said, it was silverware. It was a medal that nobody in that group has won before. So it is going to be a downer, but one way or another, Kieran and the three Kierans, they just have to pick the boys up, have to reset their goals, and they have to treat Westmeath with utmost respect, because we've always had it difficult against them, and we can't afford to be complacent and think, oh, geez, this is a great draw for us. It's only Westmeath, and sure, we have them at home. We need to make sure that we take full advantage of home in terms of having it feeling like it's a championship game for our players coming into, that they don't feel like this is an old qualifier game or it's a league game. Let's get a crowd there that it creates an atmosphere, creates a vibe that gets the players up for to try and pick them up, because that's actually massive, because they will be deflated, and it has the potential to feel like, oh, there's also another game, like there's a big game coming against Tyrone and should there be a good crowd there, and there's a big game coming against Galway, we'd take a good crowd there. This is hugely important, so let's take a big crowd to this one, give the players that bit of a lift and that bit of a buzz that gives the championship feel that it deserves. And like I said, get a win and then you're back up and running, confidence is up, and obviously then you have a massive one against Tyrone that, well, we can plot and plan and deal with as we build into it.
Yeah, so that's in 2 weeks' time. The start of the round robin series of the All Ireland. So obviously we'll be covering that in 2 weeks, and we'll hopefully have a few more podcasts in between now and then. So Aaron, great to have you on. Great to hear your thoughts. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Not a problem, Sean. Anytime.